Okay, so I'm gonna do the next video here to try to get just more of a normative facade using a basic facade system in Rhino.Inside. And once again, this is really dependent on just getting things clean and organized. The actual implementation of the model into Revit is pretty straightforward. So what we're going to do is really just spend some time getting the right curves sorted and all of that, and then push those into Revit. So one thing I do want to clean up before I do that is for the design intent for this building, I want, if I pull that window away, I don't want these columns hanging out the side. Obviously, I don't want them expressed on the exterior. So this is actually going to be just another step that we can do, where here is our curves that if I click on these, you can see, hold on real quick in here, in Rhino. These are my curves that represent the building, floor slabs. Those are also the ones we're using to call out our column grid. I want to kind of offset those in a little bit to just make sure that the grids don't come to the end. And I'm also just going to relocate my set out point for that. Before I also forget, I'm going to just, I deleted out the two other massings. So here, if I show in the model here, it's going to spin for a second, but I have, I'm just going to work on this one for now. I'm going to do a normative facade on here. This one should be similar, and this one here is going to be a different facade system that I'm going to show at a later date. But I'm going to start with this one, where basically all the facades are straight vertical up and down, but the building itself is twisting. So let me undo that because I don't want to see any of that. And then what I'm going to do is let it think for a second. Okay, now that it's done thinking, I want to first, I want to show my facade set out point. So I'll do show selected. I'm going to select my facade set out point. One other thing you may note is it's spinning a lot after I do anything related to visibility. That's because of things being pre-visualized sometimes in Revit. So if possible, you want to turn this off. Actually, that's turned off, so it's still being a little slow. It might be because of the stuff that's happening in here, these components. So you could disable these and re-enable them, but I'm just going to work for now to make this happen. So I just lost where I was. Okay, so here's my curves. If I come down for a second again, these are my curves, which are my set this to be perspective for a second. Okay, yeah, so I'm gonna move this point in, and I'm also gonna offset this curve in a little bit, because that will help me have the center lines of my columns will move in a little bit, so the ones that fall directly on the edge won't be sticking outside of the building anymore. So all I'm gonna do is, and for the purposes of actually making my life easier, I'm gonna hide everything here. I'm gonna hide everything in the definition for a second, and then I'm gonna turn this on. So this should show everything that's visible. It'll just help me track this a little bit better. So to preview that, turn that on. Then I'm gonna do an offset curve. That's actually the wrong one. It's this one, offset curve, right? Here's my curves, right? My distance, I'm gonna set that. Right now you notice they're all coming out. This is good, they're doing the way I want. I want them to, well, I'm sorry, they're all kind of going in the same direction, which is good. But a way to ensure that is you could take the area, the center line of all of those curves, put an XY plane on there, and now I have them all like that. So this plane for offset operation, I'm gonna plug that in. And so that will, if you find that some of them are going in and some of them are going out, that'll help make them all go the same way, because that can be one of the things with the offset. It all depends on the direction of the curve. So now I'm actually going to do negative and I'm gonna do like 18 inches, which is 1.5 feet. So I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna plug that into D, and now I have all my curves going in 1.5 feet. And so rather than using this curve, which if you remember from our, this is the curve that dictates which columns get added and which ones get removed. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually grab my little point here. You know what, let me lock the solver for a second so that it doesn't regenerate. I'm going to take this point, I'm going to bring it here, right? And then I'm also going to, for my curves, I'm going to plug my offset curve in there. So if I unlock this, getting a problem here, I'm going to just recompute this for a second. Sometimes, why is that not working? Let me see. Oh, there might be something with my data tree. So this data tree, let me see, which is coming out of here. Oh yeah, I just need to simplify this because I'm getting the error here, which is because this is a tree mask, but the tree that's coming out of here is actually a different structure, right? So this has 3 values. This is a mask with 2, so it's not going to know what to do. All I have to do is simplify this, but you know what? Yeah, I'll just do it. I'll run it through a component. Simplify tree here, do that, and now it's going to think for a second. It's calculating for longer than it was before, so that's a good sign. And then let me see. Yeah, so this is good. And if I look in Revit, it's great because now I don't have those columns that are hanging out the side of the building anymore. All right, cool. So now we've got that. So we've got the columns working. And one other thing that's important to note while I'm talking about this is that you're going to have those situations. Like up here, this is obviously we have no columns going up, and that's because just they're not falling within. This column grid we're doing right now is not a perfect final column grid. It's kind of just a basic one. You would have different layouts. You would have ones kind of transferring. You know, you might have to adjust your overall spacing, but this again is just sort of a guideline and to give us something that we can plan around. Not perfect, not exact by any means. But now that we've got our columns in there, I'm going to get my facades in. And what I want to do is, the way I want this design to work is I want this edge of the facade here to give me a facade coming up that goes to the underside of this slab. So like this here is part of the floor above, and this here is part of the floor below. So I want those areas where they kind of twist and overlap to be exposed. I don't want facades there. It's like a stack that's twisting as it goes up. So I'm going to take actually the curves that are the, I'm going to go back a little bit, and I want my, if I bring my Rhino down, so you know what, let me turn some of this off for now. I actually want my pancake tops to be, if I turn this on, or you know what, let me here we go. Actually, I'm sorry, it's not the pancake top. The pancake top is the top surface of the massing. I want the pancake bottom. And you know what, I can take this and plug this in as a curve. So now I just have basically the bottoms of all of them. That's going to be where I want my facade to go. So I'm going to take this, pull this down, and this is pretty easy. So right here what I'm going to do is do wall, add wall by curve, and you have to explode this curve because right now it's a linked set of curves that's joined, right? But that's not the way that Rhino interprets, or sorry, Revit interprets it. When you're drawing a curve, let me just show you real quickly in Revit. When I'm drawing, when I click architecture and wall, if I pick a curtain wall, let's just pick like I'm just going to do a exterior glazing and click and draw. I draw line by line, and it actually thinks of these as individual. Like when I click on this, it's one wall. I can click tab and select it, but this says this is actually a chain of walls. So if you look down here, it'll tell me what I'm selecting. So I click this. Right now it says curtain wall. This is a chain of wall or lines. It's not one curve. It sees it as a chain of lines. And so what that means is we cannot feed. If I try to go back into my Rhino here and I try to plug this into my curves, I'm going to get an error. Curve must be a horizontal line, ellipse, or curve. Right now, if I grab this and pull this out, these are all polyline curves or planar curves. They are not horizontal line, arcs, or ellipses. So I have to explode this curve, right? And then I get a bunch of segments here, and I'm going to plug that in, and it's going to think for a second. Hopefully. So some of them let me actually do simplify curve. See if this helps. You see that it's not doing some of these. There we go. So if I simplify that, what it'll do is it'll take curves that might have a few extra control points on them and simplify them and make them clean. And now we're actually getting every one of our facades is getting built. We might have maybe there's a small one that's not working. They seem to all be working though. This is not always 100% perfect. You might need to go in and tweak a couple things, but this seems to be doing a pretty decent job of what we need. So let me come back into Revit. We can see what that looks like. So yeah, so now we're getting our facade going up the building. If I put this to maybe like a shaded mode, you can see it a little bit better. So a few things we need to fix. Number one is that this is kind of just like a weird facade system anyway, but I'll show you how to fix that. And then number two, it's going up to the floor above, or let me see, what is this doing? I'll show you, we can edit those settings a little bit, but it's unconnected and it's 20 feet tall. So here it's okay. Up here you see it's flying past. We don't want it to do that. We want it to connect to the floor above. So there's a few ways we can do that. I'm going to come in here. This is going to ask me for the type, the level, and the height, right? So first, what I want to do is the level should be getting assigned automatically. Let me come back into here and check. Level 5, and then there's no base offset. But if we want to be explicit about it, I'm going to come back here and grab my list of levels, which I think are here, right? So here's my grafted list of levels. I'm going to just, let me see, grab this. So I have all my levels here. I'm going to pull this down here. I need to make sure these data trees are matching. So hold on, simplify this. I have my 0 through 29. Simplify this. 0 through 30. We don't need the last level because the last level is the roof. And right now we're only operating with our bottom curves. So in order to fix that, what I can do is do, I'm going to split this tree, or let me see. I want to be able to split tree. Let me see the best way to do this. I'm going to split the tree, right? It's going to ask for where we want to split it. So again, this is harder than doing just a split list where we can just give it an index. But here's the tree I want to use. I'm going to do branch by index because I could punch in the exact mask. No, not tree branch index, branch by index. Is it tree branch? No, because this is looking for the path. This might be a plugin component that I am not. something I use a lot, and now I'm wondering if it's actually in a plugin and I just didn't notice it. There's a branch by index, which I think maybe, now that I'm looking at it, maybe exists in a plugin. So I'm just going to use a tree statistics, right? So this will give me all the paths of the tree. I want to split it at the last item. So if I do list length, this allows me to expand to more or less floors and have it update rather than just punching in 30. Like, I don't want to just explicitly put in the floor, because then if my building gets taller or shorter, it's not going to work. So the list length is 31. I'm going to do list item. And now I have my index of, why is it giving me 0? Length, list, item. Sorry, I gotta do subtraction. I gotta do list length minus 1. Okay, and now I have my 30. So here's my tree that I want to branch is this one. I want to branch there. So I have level 31. Sorry. I want to do it here, split it there. So I have level 31, and then I have all my other ones, right? So what it's doing is it's giving me 31 at the top, which I don't want, and it's giving me all my other levels below it. So now I have the levels that I need. I'm going to take those, plug them into my levels here. So now I'm getting those. Type we'll work on in a second. Height, this is where things get a little bit trickier. I need to basically set the height of all my walls so that they're set depending on the height of the floor to floor. So if I come back, I should have my floor to floor heights. Where are my floor to floor heights? So those are my levels. Here's my elevations. I can do this. I could set up a little operation here to get my floor to floor heights using this, which is to basically take, here's my elevations, right? So if I do number, I'm going to get my elevations out of here. All right, let me pull this down and we'll work down here. Okay. I need to basically subtract the second number, the first number in this list from the second number in this list to get my floor to floor heights. So I'm going to do a shift paths. Sorry, not a shift path, shift list. What this does is it shifts my list by one value, right? And then if I do a subtraction, I can subtract, so this starts with 20, so I do 20 from 0, and I should end up with, this is the floor to floor heights. All right, and again, I don't want that last one, that's where the list wraps. So I'm just going to do a split list. Delete that for a second. I want to do it, I'm going to use this same logic here, which is list length minus 1. Split my list length minus 1. So what I have coming out of there now is this, which is my floor to floor heights without the last one, and the one value that comes out of there is the last one. So for my heights, I'm going to take this, I'm going to plug it into there. It's going to think for a second. I probably should have grafted that list. Yeah, hopefully it doesn't crash. Yeah, because basically what's happening is I'm not giving it the same data structure. Hopefully this doesn't crash. Tried escaping out. stop the operation. Maybe it'll work. Okay, cool, perfect. All right, I escaped out. I'm just gonna graft this tree because I basically want the heights to be the same in each branch. Simplify this tree. So that's because I have this as a grafted list, this is a grafted list, and this is a grafted list. This is simplified, or no, simplify. This I'm gonna simplify as well. Let me unplug this first. Should have probably locked my solver. If you're ever like doing a lot where you're moving a lot of wires around, you don't want it to update every time, you need to lock your solver. Alright, let me see, maybe I can escape out of this. Okay, just pause the video to let it catch up a little bit. Let me lock the solver. Or you know what, I'm just going to disable this component because I want to not lock the solver, because I want to just compare my data trees. It's pretty good practice to make sure your data trees match format. Sometimes it automatic, oh, I already have a simplify on there. So that should be simplified coming in there, simplified, all just 0 to 29 in brackets. Plug my heights in there, delete this, and now if I enable this, it's going to think for a second, but all my heights will be accurate. So that's just a lesson in like making sure your data trees match up when you're plugging them in. Cool. So it's going to think for a second, come back here. Awesome. This is great. So all of them now don't extend past like they were before. Cool. Yeah, there's the few that I said maybe wouldn't work, that you might have to just go in and like manually model. So we go back to here, and now we have our facades that are going up to the right height. A few other things I might do is see how at the edges it gets a little bit messy. I might want to allow these to join at the edges, and I'm also going to set the height to be a little bit lower, right? So if I click on my floor slab right now is, it's 10 inches thick, so I actually might want to subtract the 10 inches from the floor to floor height. So coming back in here, here's my floor to floor heights is coming out of here. I'm going to do a subtraction, right? And I'm going to account for the thickness of the floor. So what's 10 inches in feet? Let me just Google this. 10 divided by 12 is what? It's like 0.833333. So if I do 0.833333 here, there's my values. I plug these into my heights. It's going to account for the thickness of the floor. So therefore, we're not going to have, and you might have seen it in the background, we don't have them running through the floor above anymore. So now they're nice and clean. This is called allow joins. I'm going to toggle that to true. Put that into allow joins. That'll make the edges where the two walls meet a little bit cleaner. Cool, nice. All right, so the last thing I want to do is I want to show you how to kind of create a custom type to maybe get mullions or some sort of detail in there. The way that this works is that the spacing of the facade is going to be dependent on the parameters within the family. So I'm going to click on this exterior glazing. I'm going to edit the type, and I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to call this like, you know, custom wall system. Okay. My vertical grid, maybe I want this to be like a 4 foot, right? And then for the layout, fixed distance, means that it'll always be 4 feet, right? And then at the end, as you can see here, it might end up being a little bit smaller. I might want to do maximum spacing, right? So what that means is rather than doing something that is 4 feet and then gaps at the end, maximum spacing means it's going to make them all exactly the same size within the curve, not bigger than 4 feet. So this way what ends up happening is you don't have those little pieces left over at the end. It depends on how you want to detail it and kind of ultimately what you want to do. So my horizontal grid, I'll also just make this 10 feet for now, and I'll make that a fixed distance. We don't have any mullions in here, so I'm going to come down, and for my vertical mullions, I'll do, for an interior, let's just do like a deep rectangular mullion, and my border type we'll do maybe, just for the sake of seeing how it looks, let's do like a quad corner mullion. Border type 2, I'll also do a quad corner mullion. And then for my horizontal, maybe we have, let's do no horizontals for now. All right, so I'm going to click OK. Elements have duplicate type mark values. That's okay. What that means is just if I go into here into my type parameters, there's a type mark here, which CW02, I'll call it CW03 or CW02-C for custom or something like that. All right. Now you notice it's only changed this wall because that's the one that I selected when I was editing it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my model here, into Rhino and Grasshopper. Expand this. For my type here, I'm going to go type. I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to go to model, walls, and then I'm going to do my curtain wall custom wall system. And now if I plug this into the type, it's going to think for a second, and it's going to populate that. Let's see how it comes out. Think for a second. Let me pause the video. Oh, it's done. No need to pause. Have a problem. Corner mullion overlaps mullion placed on neighboring. I think that just means that if you have corner mullions that overlap with an adjacent system, it'll just basically only use one of them. So then let's go back. Oh, there's one other thing I want to show you, which is the justification. So, okay, so this seems to be working okay. In some areas, why is this not working? Custom wall system. That might be one of those curves that didn't want to work. I'll show you how to fix that in a second. But yeah, everywhere else it seems to be working okay. If I click on this wall, you'll see the justification is beginning for the vertical grid. I want that to be center, because I don't want it to start from one side and then go. I want it to start in the center and then go out evenly. It might not matter as much when they're evenly spaced like this, but let's fix it just in case. So let me show you how to fix this for a second though. So let me see, what floor is this? This is floor number 19. So if I go into my views, I don't have any plan views. So I'm going to go into view, plan view, floor plan, level 19. Click OK. So now I'm in level 19. Here's that area where it's not working. I mean, this is not really the most elaborate option, but I'm literally just going to come in here, draw a wall. I'm going to use my customs wall system. And I'll click at the center here and bring it to the center here. Okay, it's giving me that error about the overlapping. There's one thing you'll also notice, which is that these are all facing with they're on the wrong way. So that you want these to flip, because this one here looks like it's in the right spot. This one here looks like the bigger portion of the mullions on the outside. So I'm going to go back into my, let me go back into my Revit model. There's a flip parameter here. I'm going to go to toggle, and I'll do true, and I'll flip that. So again, it's going to think and then give me a result. Pause it. Okay, so here we go. If I go back into my plan, you see that they're actually justified on the right side now, so that's good. You see this little overlap, but that's okay because that's the floor below. So that's making sure that the thing is being received properly. So yeah, so there we go. There's our curtain system. Here's the little one I sketched before. But yeah, this would have been a pain to try to model manually. This video is about 30 minutes. It took us to get it in the right spot. So this here is like mullion detailing. So again, like you might actually want to inset the curves. You might want to offset these curves in a little bit to try to avoid this, but that just comes down to detailing. That's how does your curtain system interact with your slab and all of that, because the actual glass itself is okay and is in line with the slab, but the mullions are sticking out. So you know what you would do is you would just go into your definition here, and here is here's our curves for the thing. We would just offset those in the same way that we did it for the floor slabs to clean up the columns. So yeah, so that's it. I'm gonna do another video on, there's two different types of other facade methods that I want to show, but I wanted to get you guys this one first. Other ones will be coming soon.